I'm Yo-Yo.
And I'm Katia. Welcome to our podcast.
Each week we learn from the experts about all things women's health and happiness.
We are two very normal, imperfect women.
Navigating this crazy thing called life.
And trying to stay happy and healthy while we do it. So, grab a cuppa.
Or tidy away that pile of laundry.
And enjoy our discoveries. Hello.
Hello, and welcome to episode 44.
Yes, and welcome back if you've listened before, and welcome to all our new listeners.
Yes, welcome. So today we have a brilliant episode, if we say so ourselves. We have Samantha Charlwood on, and she is our first returning expert.
Yes, Samantha has a bank of knowledge about fitness, pain science, menopause, and sports therapy.
Her passion is to change women's lives in an impactful way through fitness and busting the wider society's limiting beliefs about aging and pain.
She's been a qualified sports therapist, strength coach and menopause specialist, and she has been the British powerlifting champion 3 times.
3 times!
Mm-hmm.
Pretty impressive. She's also worked as a sports therapist for 13 years and a massage therapist for 26 years.
Samantha currently focuses on coaching women who are generally over the age of 40 in strength, exercise and nutrition, and she's also still active as a sports therapist and a pain educator.
And personally, she enjoys getting stuck into CrossFit. She is a mum to 2 teenagers and is currently managing life as a woman in her late 40s.
Yes, the last time we had her on, she was on episode 4, so she's our first guest.
Yes.
Episode, and we all talked about how women can benefit from getting stronger.
Yeah.
And how to get into strength training.
Yeah, so there was lots of tips she gave about if you're a complete beginner, how to start strength training just at home.
Yeah, and the benefits and she busted some myths about strength training
yes.
as well. It was a brilliant episode.
So, but that was episode 4, our very first one.
Yes.
And back in the day, we then chatted with her, and there was so much extra stuff that we wanted to talk to her about. And she then mentioned that she was kind of into pain science.
Yeah.
Which is what this episode
is all about.
Yeah.
So, without much further ado, should we go into it?
Yeah. We really enjoyed the episode. We hope you do too.
Hi, Samantha. Welcome back. It's nice to have you back.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me back. Gosh, what a privilege. Thank you so much.
No.
Lovely.
40 episodes later, here you are.
Absolutely.
Amazing. You guys, smashing it.
Thank you. You're our first returning guest, so that's really exciting.
Well, hopefully I did okay the first time, so let's see if we can not mess this up.
Well, we felt really privileged because you were our very first guest.
Yeah.
And you were an amazing guest straight away. So we felt really
bless
privileged to have you kind of kickstart the podcast for us.
It's so easy for me to talk about those, last time we talked about strength, obviously, and we'll talk about something slightly different today, but it's so easy to talk about something that you're passionate about. So it's not even, you can't even call it work, can you, really? So it's kind of, I'm very, very lucky to have that.
Ah, fantastic. It's not work if it's
something you
enjoy.
enjoy.
You never work a day in your life or something, isn't it? Do a job you love.
Yeah. But so we, as always, we like to dive straight in.
Sure.
So today we're talking about pain science. Can you tell us what is pain and why do we need it?
Okay, so I think I wanted to sort of talk about pain today because I think a lot of people have this idea that pain is something that's kind of created in the body, that we have like a pain area, and that it's kind of, we have pain sensations. And I think one of the things to clear up really is that pain is an experience. So if you think of pain, it's a bit of a strange analogy, but thinking almost like love. So it's something that we all feel differently about. We all have a different interaction with. My experience of love will be different from your experience of love. I couldn't possibly tell you what being in love feels like for you. I can't, and in the same way you could apply that to pain. So I can't say what your pain would feel like, and you can't say what my pain would feel like. So we have an experience of an output of pain, rather than something being created within the body, which I think is something that people maybe struggle to kind of see. Does that make sense? If I just spouted a load of nonsense?
No, that's
that's an
interesting.
amazing analogy, and I'd
Yeah.
never ever thought of it like that.
Yeah, and you're right. So many people think that it is just a fact. It's like you're
Yeah.
in pain. That's a physical thing in the
Yes,
body, and it's a fact.
my arm hurts, and that's
Yeah.
pain is in my arm. So actually, if
Yeah.
you think of it more like, again, if we use vision to maybe describe what is happening on a physiological level, where with vision, information is coming in through our eyes, and we take all that information to our brain, and our brain makes a decision around what's happening based on everything it knows about that. So with things like optical illusions, you can look at something like that and go, okay, I know that grey bit is lighter at the top, and they're the same color. I know they're the same color, but why do I think that one is lighter and one is darker? The green white dress thing. Do you remember that was going around on Facebook a while ago, where you had like, who thinks this is green and white, and who thinks this is blue and pink? And exactly that. So the way that our brains, we take that information in and we layer everything that we know about, okay, the sky's up there, the grass is down there, we know that shadows cast like this. So all of that happens in an instant. And exactly the same thing happens with pain. So pain comes from information that the body gathers around the body and goes up the spinal cord into the brain. And out of that comes the information. So the brain then makes a decision around that information about what that is. So, for example, you might have a feeling on the outside of your leg. Then the information travels up the leg into the spinal cord. It goes up all the way to the brain, and the brain then goes, okay, what do we know about that leg? Have we felt this feeling before? What happened when our neighbor down the road, they hurt their leg? What happened there? Oh my God, they were up and, and that will create a response, and that response might be pain. So it's really effective, and there's, you're going to get there's shortcuts to it. For example, if you touch a hot poker or a hot, if you touch fire, you get that quick, oh, gosh, that's, take that hand away, because we react to those in that environment. But yeah, so that's pain. Does that sound different from how you've kind of understood pain before, I guess?
Yeah, I always thought pain was like everyone would feel pain the same. So if someone bashed into the wall or burnt, like yesterday I burnt myself on the oven, I might feel pain. I always thought everyone felt that same sensation, same level of pain.
Yeah, it's like it's just like
it's not like a standard thing. No.
Yeah.
Because you could have, for example,
pain receptors.
Yeah, and we have lots of things that we have. You'll walk around obviously with bruises on you that you're like, how did I get that bruise? So, for example, we know that pain doesn't equal tissue damage, for example. So, we don't have that correlation, simply doesn't exist. We have people who have phantom limb pain where they don't have a limb and they still have pain in a limb that doesn't exist. So we know that pain is not in the tissues.
Yeah. So go into that a little bit deeper. So for a lot of people, that would be very surprising that pain does not equal tissue damage. I think quite a lot of people might be like, huh? You damage your body or you hurt yourself, then you get pain. Why does that not equate? Can you explain?
Absolutely.
Maybe
so again, as I say, so we kind of know, as I say, with there'll be things that you experience that you don't even have any sort of reaction to. So you might have something that happens in. I've got a gardener, for example, a gardener friend who he gets scratches and stuff all over him, and he has absolutely no idea because he's used to stuff brushing up against him, and sometimes it will cut the skin and sometimes it won't. So we have a reaction to certain things that are going to, acute pain. So if it's really bad, so for example, I walk down the road and fall over and sprain my ankle. Now, the thing that happens within the body, I can be quite kind of silency for a second. Basically, tissues are torn within the body in that instance, and noxious substances are released. So a chemical reaction happens in the tissues, which is effectively like an irritant to the body. So that then sends really sharp, strong messages up to the brain, and the brain will go, oh, okay, there is a problem in this area. We need to keep an eye on that. This is a bad thing. We don't want that person walking on that ankle for a while. So we're going to create an environment where every time they go to walk on it, it hurts. So that then carries on until the tissues are in a state where they're kind of, okay, this doesn't hurt as much because the noxious substance that's in those tissues doesn't exist as much. That's good. So you can start, and so over a period of time, that will start to feel better. Does that sort of make sense? So you're kind of
Okay, so where's this when there's actually damage, like you've burnt yourself, like that fire thing, and there's a chemical reaction, there's actually a reaction. Your brain, that's the immediate response, and why it's so quick, and why you need to stop doing something.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's what we
Okay.
call acute pain. So acute pain is that. So that's really good and really useful. We need that because without it, we'd hurt ourselves, and I wouldn't know about it, and carry on, walking on tissues that shouldn't be walked on. I guess the thing that crosses over is that when it becomes chronic pain. So pain that's lasted more than 12 weeks, for example, that's then a slightly different circumstance. So we can talk about that a little bit later. So almost like to separate them out, that one, pain is good because it's very helpful and it stops us from hurting ourselves more. One of the phrases I like to use is pain is a protector, not a detector. So it protects the body from more damage rather than detecting damage that has happened. So if you have a broken ankle, or you go over on your ankle, the pain stops you from making those tissues worse, rather than saying, okay, this is the situation. It's kind of like, no, we just need to make sure that everything's going to be okay. Yeah. So it's very different, really, than most people think. I'm not sure whether I explained it any better, but it's kind of used lots of big words.
Yeah. You did. So, but then I think, so when it's, I can understand that, but then when it's like, I suppose, really, like, I don't know, like period pain, there's not actually damage being done.
No, interesting.
So how does that work in terms of, because it's still painful?
Yeah, so that will be sort of muscle contractions, and and that's a really good, exactly what a great analogy actually is, because so we use one where we literally get people to pinch their ear. So if you pinch, we can't do it because we've got headphones on, but if you pinch your earlobe, you can, but if you pinch your earlobe as hard as you can, really, 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 really hard, and at some point it'll really hurt, but nothing's damaged. So your body is protecting you from doing something bad to yourself in that instance. And I guess possibly you could argue that maybe menstrual cramps are there to kind of make you slow down, or to be aware that certain things are happening within the body. And that's one of the things that it's used for. Back pain, again, with menstrual cramps is different because there will be something that's actually moving and changing, and this is where the sort of more psychological side comes into it with, for example, if you've been in an environment where, having menstrual cramps wasn't very good, and whatever, it was just a really uncomfortable situation, then maybe do you experience them perhaps more than somebody who was perhaps in a situation where it was really easy to just go, I'm not having a great day, I'm going to go lie on the sofa. So, our experience of how that will work for everybody is going to be different.
And the environment you're in, so
exactly 100%. And environment makes so much, so huge. I mean, again, it's the brain layering on how dangerous is this to me type message, how bad is this? You have a lot of experience, we have a lot of stories around people who perhaps are in a war zone and get shot, for example, but will still make it back to the village, or make it back to whatever, because they've had to get over, the adrenaline has just kicked in, and they've made it to safety, because at that point getting to safety was way more important to the brain than worrying about whether it still had a leg or not. So it was, those things will, the hierarchy of things that are important to it.
Interesting.
It's
very,
That's sorry, it's a big subject.
It is, but so even like that whole, there is. It's so, it's kind of like that whole analogy, well, not analogy, the experience of like having to, safety comes first, and how your body protects you, and that survival instinct just shows how much your brain controls that, because it's like kind of I remember it's a block. You can block, like paracetamols block
Yeah.
pain, don't they?
Yeah.
So that's it's a pathway. It's a pathway, I suppose.
Yeah, so we used to think, when I learnt it first, we used to think that we used to call it the gateway theory. So there was a kind of a thing that you could kind of open and shut, a gate that you could open and shut. And then if you shut that gate, then the pain couldn't get through. It's part of the where we got the heat and ice thing from, is that we would shut the gate. So if you had thermoreceptors being used, then the nociceptors couldn't, the pain receptors, as it were, couldn't work. So it's kind of like, now we know that's complete nonsense. But you have to go through these stages to realize that that's, to grow on. Okay, so if it's not that, so what is it? We now know, I think the saying is that there's more pathways to pain than there are stars in the galaxy. So there are more ways for, massive, like every part of your brain is has a way of dealing with information around pain. So, or information that's not quite true, but it's that sort of thing. It's in a sort of layman's terms. It's the every aspect of the brain. There aren't parts of the brain that are involved. It is all of it. So anything you've heard, anything you've ever experienced, anything you've ever seen, anything that your body's ever been through, there's a book, The Body Holds the Score. So the how much the body holds on to things, and then when something new happens, what they do with that information.
But I'm like, where do we start?
I know. Like, I did a weekend, and we kind of just scratched the surface. It's so big, but I think that's
so fascinating, though.
Yeah, I think that's my major message. Really, is that I think that people think that it's quite kind of, if I think we're going to come on to this later maybe, but if I've got pain, then I shouldn't do anything, or that I should rest, or that and it's really hard. And also, I think I should say, hands up, I intellectually understand this. I've been studying it for the last 15 years. I understand it, and I still get pain that I can't explain. So it doesn't mean that, and it's sort of, so this is not a light subject or a kind of subject, once you know it, you can get rid of pain, or it doesn't work like that.
You can't be enlightened out of pain.
No.
Yes.
I think go on, sorry.
I was going to say, it kind of leads me on to the question, because you said people think maybe they shouldn't do stuff when they're in pain, but I'm really interested to how does this relate to exercise?
Yeah, sure.
Should you exercise with pain if you're injured or if you feel injured? What are your experiences with training people and pain, when they should rest, when they should just kind of go through the pain?
Sure.
Yeah, what's your take on that?
So I think first and foremost, I always kind of go on, if someone comes to me, I'm a sports therapist, so as within part of it. So if we have a conversation around, okay, I have knee pain. Okay, so when sorry, did anything happen to that knee? So we think, did you fall over? Did you have a car accident? Did you, has something external happened to make something happen to that knee? And if it has, then I think we can probably go down okay, something has probably been injured, and maybe we should look at what's going on there. If it's just come on and it's kind of, or it happened last night when I was running, it hasn't happened before, you go, okay, maybe take a day off, just take a day off of the heavy running and just walk and keep moving. Motion is lotion, so keep moving. Don't stop. I know we're full of them. I've got another great one later as well. So
great. Motion is lotion.
Motion is lotion.
I like it.
Yeah, so keep moving. Pottering. I like the word pottering. So people kind of, if you don't sit for too long, don't stand for too long. So I would say, if you have just, last night you were running and you woke up this morning and you've got a bad knee. Okay. Did anything bad happen last night? No. Okay. So I've just woken up and my knee's a bit sore. Okay. So maybe today don't go for a run, but just keep moving. If that then carries on for, or it gets worse, that's always a really good sign. If it gets worse, then that's not a good sign. You do need to go and get it checked out. If it kind of gets a little bit better, but the next time you run, it hurts again, I would say, again, needs a bit more investigation. But what I would say is there's always a really good sign if you have times when it doesn't hurt. Because if you broke your leg, it would hurt all the time. So we know that if there are times when it doesn't hurt, that it's possible for it not to hurt. So that's a really good sign. I would say it's always better to get it checked, obviously, because a disclaimer, always better to get it checked out and make sure that you're okay to exercise. But largely, if I'm talking to people, I maybe say, like, if it's a 3 out of 10, like, that's probably okay. Like, if it builds to like a 4 or a 5 when you're out running, maybe go down to a walk. I mean, I'm using running as kind of, we just see so many running injuries.
Yes.
So, if it's like that, but if it's, like a 3, you're probably okay. And again, you see, it's my perception of 3 is going to be different from your perception of 3. So, a 3, and I say a 3 out of 10. So we say 10 out of 10 being like the most extreme pain you've ever felt, and then obviously dialing it down to there. But that does give you an idea then for the person to take autonomy in their own decision around, okay, this feels like a 3 out of 10 for me, because I might be like, come on, that's not a 3 out of 10, but for them it is a 3 out of 10. So, and that's absolutely fine. So yeah, so just managing it is the way to go, and not stop. Don't stop altogether.
Yes.
Just potter, move, gentle. Yes,
because
motion is lotion.
I love that.
I had a T-shirt with "motion is lotion." It's such a good phrase.
It's very good. I want that T-shirt.
Yeah.
Special print out for Yolanta.
Yeah. But
so
but what about, so you said knee pain, but general joint pain, if someone is maybe starting to have achy hips or an achy back or like an achy shoulder, do you see that in the people that you train?
Oh, yes, a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people
they train through it, or?
So again, I would say a lot of people have more pain when they're not training than they do when they are training. And the reason perhaps behind joint pain, again, it's kind of a bit global, but a lot of it comes down to an inflammatory response. So things like arthritis, things like that, is an inflammation within the body rather than particularly a joint problem, as it were. So, sometimes it can come down to an inflammatory response, and then you're looking at trying to reduce the inflammatory response in lots and lots of different ways. So, diet, but one of those will be exercise. And we can think of it, like, again, with mechanical load. So things that are loaded will generally improve with, and if we can get that just right, again, I think I talked about this last time in the last podcast about strength and the Goldilocks principle. And just, if we can apply just about the right amount of exercise, it will get better. Like if you're in pain and you go for an 8-mile hike, not such a great idea. But if you're in pain and you go for like a 5-10 minute walk outside, that will help, to just move things through, and in lots and lots of different ways.
Yeah. I wonder what your opinion is. So in my context, so you probably, I think I told you before, I'm a yoga teacher.
Yes.
And the style of yoga I teach, there's a lot of pressure on the hands and wrists a lot.
Yes.
And I'm always easing people's minds. So a lot of people come to me with like, oh, but my wrists are so painful and they're so weak.
Yeah.
And I do often say, well, actually, over time, the wrists get stronger if you put weight. And even if they are like a little bit, I try to use the word uncomfortable rather than painful.
I like feedback.
Certain feedback.
They might give you some feedback.
And so a lot of people might think like putting any pressure on their weak wrists is like, oh, no, I'm going to break my wrist.
Break them.
But I'm always trying to really put people's minds at ease and say it's okay if they're a bit painful.
Yeah.
They get stronger over time.
Absolutely.
Just know your limits. If you really want to stop doing the movement, just stop and roll your wrists out. What's your opinion on, do you reckon that's the right thing to say?
100%. I think it's the best thing you could possibly say to anyone. I think it's also, again, as you were talking, it was just making me think, okay, think of it like life. If you never put yourself in a slightly uncomfortable position or an uncomfortable situation, you're just going to stay in this tiny little place. And so occasionally we don't have to be like, okay, say, for example, you don't want to do public speaking. Don't stand in front of 4,000 people and do a presentation, but maybe get a group of small friends, get a small group of friends and speak to them, so same, just applying that load to elicit a response to the stimulus, isn't it? So you want that kind of enough stimulus to kind of make you go, okay, I can feel this is enough, but not too much to kind of make you go, oh gosh, that's really not comfortable, because that's what we're looking for. And exactly the same, you want a little bit of load through the wrists so that they start to go, this is okay, this is a safe thing for me to do.
We hope you're enjoying this episode so far. We'd love to help more women out there, so please subscribe, rate and review, which helps more people find us. And share this episode with any friends who you think will enjoy it too. Thank you. And without further ado, here's the rest of the episode.
And that's,
it's just like when you're stiff, isn't it? Stiffness is kind of like a bit uncomfortable and painful. Like when you've been driving for ages and you get out and you're like, oh, my back. And when you do that initial stiffness, it's quite uncomfortable. And that's the same. Yeah. But if you didn't do that, it's a natural response. Your body needs you to move.
Absolutely.
And like it's the same thing. Like when I do yoga, it's not a joyful thing because I'm so stiff.
It
is uncomfortable.
Yes.
And so it is, but I know I have to do it because it'll make me feel better.
And I'm sure over a period of time, you will have got better, and, we talked last time about, change is inevitable, but how we change is not. And so you will change as we get older. You will, feel different things, but it doesn't have to go down a specific path. You get to choose how that works. And the same with, with that sort of thing, you can, your world can get smaller or your world can get larger.
Yeah. So with somebody who's now like sat at home listening and they're in pain, or they have like a bit of pain or chronic pain, like where would they start in their pain journey of like kind of trying to resolve it or find out what it is?
Sure.
I don't know if you use what example you want. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just somebody could be sat there with anything.
Absolutely. I'm sure there are. Even minimal, like most people sitting there going, do you know what, my wrists are a bit achy, or whatever. Yeah. So if I think probably thinking about how long you've had it to start with. So most people, if they're falling in this category, are having something that's over 12 weeks. So that's when we start to look at the persisting pain type analogy. Now, what we know about tissues is that the majority, I would say pretty much all tissues, would heal within 12 weeks. If you break a bone, 6 to 10 weeks, your bones are back together. Ligaments, tendons take a bit longer. So the healing that is going to take place in that time will have completed. So we should be looking at, I know this is really quite answering your question, but I'm coming round. So we should be looking at, past the 12 weeks, we're actually dealing with persisting pain, which is a slightly different thing. What we want is a positive feedback loop to start to tell the brain that the thing that's making you experience pain has gone, and that we actually now need to create a positive feedback loop that says what the activities that you're doing are safe. Now, I have someone who came to me this week, and she has pain when she wakes up in the morning. Now, she hasn't done anything by that point, so it's not like it's some people were like, oh, if I do gardening then I get a bad back the next day. Okay, so possibly that's what we call a mechanical load thing. So actually we just need to make your back a bit stronger so it's ready to do the gardening. But if you have something where it's kind of like, I've had this for 8 years and every time I wake up in the morning it hurts. Okay, so the first thing we need to remember is that we live in a predicted world. Our brains predict a nanosecond before we do everything. So we know, because otherwise we'd just be exhausted from the thinking. We, moving, the speech, the way everything is anticipated by the brain. And so we kind of expect certain things to, I wake up in the morning, my back always hurts. The brain is already cued for what that's going to feel like. Every time I play golf, my shoulder starts to ache or whatever. So we're already on that path. So my first tip for people would be is there any way to intercept that loop and start to create a positive feedback that might be random stuff like, could I go and stay in the spare bed? Could I wake up in a different place that means that doesn't hurt my back? If the other things to think about might be, okay, when is my pain worse? So is my pain worse on the way to work? And actually it starts to feel better on the way coming home from work. Is it better when I listen to music? Is it worse when I listen to a particular type of music? Is it worse when I play a sport that I don't like? Or is it, so some people will be like, my knee hurts all the time, but not when I'm running. It never hurts when I run. So like, do you like running? Yeah. Okay. So that might be why your knee doesn't hurt when you're running. So we call them DIMS and SIMs. So danger in me and safety in me. So we have these things that kind of say, okay, this activity, dangerous. Driving to work, oh, dangerous. Sitting, listening to my favorite band, safe. So, and starting to identify things that feel dangerous and things that feel safe, and do more of the safe things. So start to create that, listen to more music that you like, go for runs that you enjoy, spend time with people who make you feel, those things where you can look for glimmers and experience pain-free time, would be my biggest thing, to just start to become a detective around your pain and what that feels like, particularly if it's persistent and ongoing.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very useful for people with chronic pain.
Yeah. So it's more it's, as you said, it's more that kind of like identifying like where it doesn't hurt and creating that I don't always hurt kind of feeling.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, and creating a positive. So again, so if I were to take that a little bit further in the clinic, for example, it would be a case of, okay, so how can we now start to reassure the back that, so say it's the back, for example, so how can we reassure the back that moving in a particular way isn't going to be dangerous? So a lot of people might think, so even, for example, I get the number of people who watch my videos of squatting and go, oh my God, your knees, doesn't that hurt your knees? Even just watching someone else do it makes their knees hurt. And it's sort of like, okay, so how can we prove to your knees or your back that they're not going to hurt when you squat or bend down to pick up an object, or, because sometimes I'll talk about, people, they'll watch and go, oh, I couldn't do that. So I'm like, okay, so if your dog was unwell, would you pick your dog up, who probably weighs like 20 kilos? They're like, oh God, yeah, I'd totally pick my dog up. I'm like, of course you would, because that would be more important than, than your back pain at that point. So we know your back can do it. It's just a case of, reassuring them and moving them in that direction.
Interesting. So it's kind of always convincing our nervous system that we are
Absolutely.
safe.
Yes.
Basically,
yes,
it's
absolutely.
kind of,
That this is a safe experience, that that absolutely, that we can calm down the nervous system, that we can kind of go, okay, I often say, for example, if I'm experiencing pain, then I might be, okay, thank you for your feedback and letting me know that, you don't think this is right. The other thing I think about particularly, so for example, right now my wrist is hurting a bit, not because of what you were saying, but I was just like, that's weird because my wrist is actually hurting a bit. But I'm going through quite a lot. I've got two children who, one is doing A-level, has just done her A-levels, one's just done the GCSEs. I'm moving a clinic. We've all got all sorts of stuff going on. So I've got a lot in my cup. And so when our cups are really, really full, then we just experience everything so much more. So one of the things we say is, like, inflammation makes everything feel worse. So if we have a stress response within the body, everything feels worse. One thing I learned actually on this weekend that I've just come back from is, so for example, we quite often get people in with one thing, which then makes another thing worse. So for example, they might be like, okay, my knee really hurts, and oh my God, my low back is that was fine like 3 weeks ago, and now it's much worse again. And so what we have is the response within the body. Again, if one area is inflamed, and it's effectively ramping up the internal dial, if I sort of think of it like, so, okay, so we've got something going on in the body, danger alert, it just dials up the heat on everything. So you start to kind of go, God, yeah, my shoulder really hurts as well. And you know how it's like when you get the flu and everything hurts, it's that.
Yeah, it's contagious between joints and areas in the body.
Yeah.
You're more heightened to it, aren't you? More sensitive to it.
Yes, and some people sort of say it's referred pain, or I think that was quite common, wasn't it? They were like, oh, it's the biomechanics, it's working its way up through the body. No, it's
not. It's not just that you're walking differently. Yeah.
Very unlikely. I mean, possibly occasionally, but mostly it's generally that the response within the body, because have you really damaged anything in that short period of time where you've been slightly walking differently for maybe a week or something? So yeah, it's
Interesting.
unlikely to have damaged something.
So it's kind of like, I might be summarising here, but like, so we're not saying that people don't feel pain and there's not a reason, like everybody feels pain and everyone feels it differently. But it's kind of also that there's reasons, like there could be reasons like, obviously you've broken, there's something actually really serious where it's broken and like, you obviously have a medical issue. But they were talking about the aches and the niggles here that aren't 12 weeks and necessarily, or just like the things that, and also situations can change it and make you feel things more.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, I mean, you can, I guess it's a little niggles and things that aren't necessarily like, oh my God, I haven't moved for 3 years or whatever. So you can have things particularly, and that's one of the other things, one of the joys of getting older, and particularly women where our estrogen starts to decline. Estrogen is the most wonderful anti-inflammatory, and so we don't as so as estrogen starts to go down, our inflammation goes up. I was just listening to a podcast actually the other day about how we really struggle to balance our cortisol as we get older, particularly as women. So the stress hormone, and so our stress response is just not as we're just not as good at managing it. And so that's really, it's good to know that we're not making it up. Definitely not. This is one thing I always say to people. So if what you're hearing is, oh, it's all in my head, then I've done a really bad job of explaining it, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it is 100% real. Always. You are always correct that it is painful. And your experience, I can't possibly tell you how you feel about it and what you're experiencing. And so it's just a case of then, like I say, being detective, and between me and my client, or me and my patient, I would be almost detective-like as to what we can do to move forwards and to create a situation where that's not going to hurt anymore.
But the positive thing is, of what you were saying, is that there are so many things you can do to alleviate it or make it better.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is such a good
so
message.
Many. It's one of the things, because you kind of get a little bit like, oh God, this is just gonna get so confusing and so complicated. I'm like, yeah, but it's so confusing and so complicated that it means that so many things affect it. So, like we were saying, it could be going to a yoga class, or it could be listening to your favorite music on the way to work, or there's so many things. And I think we sort of think, okay, so in order to get rid of my pain, I either have to take drugs, or I have to do some really, really complicated exercises that I find on YouTube, or whatever. That's actually, there's so many things that you can think of it. If you thought of it more like, I say, like a big cup, that you can just start to take some of the things out of the cup. He actually, Lorimer Moseley, who is the god of kind of pain science, talks about a bath full of kind of like, you might have a bath and you've got like a crocodile in there, and you've got like, a rhinoceros, and you're like, oh, we're just carrying on. And then this tiny little mouse drops, and you're like, right, that's the thing that caused my pain. And it's like, no, it wasn't that. It's like, let's take the crocodile out and the rhinoceros, take out the fact that you hate your job, and take out the fact that, you don't like where you live. There's two massive things. And then that little thing that you did in the garden that made you have that pain in your back. So that's the things we're looking at. We're looking at a lot of lifestyle stuff, a lot of environmental stuff that can be affecting how your experience of pain is being experienced.
Interesting. That's so fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
So a little bit of a selfish question. So,
of course,
have you experienced? Have any of your clients had nerve pain, like sciatica? And I ask this because it's a really relevant podcast. I'm currently pregnant.
Yes.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And they're sitting on your sciatic nerve.
Yes. So I have like this sciatic nerve, like bum pain at the moment. But yeah, curious. At the moment, I'm just very headstrong and like, it's not stopping me doing anything. I'm doing everything. But how do you approach this with your clients?
How's that working for you?
A lot of limping and a lot of paracetamol.
Yeah. So the thing is, you have a very, very specific thing that's causing that. I mean, it's very, it's like me saying, oh, Katya, I don't understand why you're moaning about your foot. I'm just standing on it with a pointy heel. I mean, duh. So it's like, okay, there's something that's kind of sitting on your sciatic nerve. I remember it when it's like floors you, doesn't it? Like doing the washing, you're like, oh my God, it's so striking. So I remember it very well. Poor thing. So what I would say is probably, there may be times when you notice that it's worse. So for example, mine was doing the washing up at the end of a really busy day where I probably worked like 9 hours and I was quite tired and I had a toddler and, so there might be a little bit of that. So that maybe if it's possible to take anything out of your cup, that may make your experience easier, your inflammatory response a little bit less. But at the moment you have a very, very specific thing that's causing that to happen. If you weren't pregnant, then I would say, okay, we probably want to look at is there some exercises or something that we can do that could offset that and make that area feel a bit better, but also there may be a mechanical load issue again that it's not working the way it should be. So we perhaps need to look at, let's strengthen that area, and whilst at the same time offloading anything that we can out of your stress cup, as it were. So but yes, it doesn't really matter what the pain is. And we did a lot of this of questioning of Lorimer. We're like, but what about this pain? What about that pain? He's like, okay, look, listen, it doesn't matter what the pain is. Like saying, oh, but again, if we went back to love, it's like, okay, yeah, but what about when I love my brother? What about when I love my son? That's different from, of course it's different, but you still love and it's still experienced in a particular way, and your experience will be different from someone else's experience of that. So it's it's just kind of learning how to navigate it, I guess, really, and to kind of offloading as much as you can. And
yes,
does that make sense?
Thank you. It does. And I just wanted to add, because when you said before how some of your clients or patients say that their pain goes away when they're running. Mine is worse when I'm walking slowly. But this morning I'm still going for like a little slow walk jog.
Okay.
Very, very like horizontal jogging. Aww. Like, there's no bouncing involved. It's just
It's one of those Olympian speed walks.
But it didn't hurt when I was jogging. How odd is that?
Yeah. But, so I wonder if the movement is just kind of, or maybe baby likes jogging. Maybe baby this is nice.
Yeah. You're bouncing it off you.
Yeah, that's right. It's taking its load off the...
But it was also in the morning, and I think it's worse. My pain at the moment is worse in the evening at the end.
Yeah.
But
well, you've had a long day and you've already got another child, haven't you? So there's a lot. You're doing a lot. It's I think it's wholly underestimated, the second child thing. It's a whole different ball game.
Yes. But thank you for answering such a personal question.
No, not at all. I'm sure there's lots of your listeners who are in the same boat.
Yeah,
it's making me laugh because every time I go to a physio for my knee pain, or I go see Pippa, my chiropractor, she always asks oh, how's things going, and like the stress on my lower back. And I know it's 1A, strengthening my lower back. 2, it's like my knee pain is like I have to strengthen my quads and my hamstrings. My hamstrings are so tight. And then also
you
the
stretch your hamstrings. Yeah.
And strengthen.
Oh yeah.
Like around my knee and my glutes.
Yeah.
And then also then like my stress levels. Like I'll go see Pippa earlier at my chiropractor because I've had a month of like high intense stress, and she's like, yeah, you're really tight, and you must have because you sit in this thing, and it's all like, but it's all about like, it's all so many different things that affect it that I'm like, so I have to do the homework.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you do. And I think that's the great thing right now is that the wind of change has kind of already happened. I think. Again, I go back to Lorimer, but he feels slightly guilty because he sort of said, I started this wave of, there's a very famous, I've sent it to a lot of people, so I think it's famous, but it probably isn't. He did a TED talk about 13 years ago, and it's called Pain is in the Brain or Pain is in the Mind or something like that. And it kind of started a bit of a wave of people thinking that, okay, so they go to the doctor and the doctor's like, yeah, but it's it's coming from your brain. And so people are like, oh, so I'm just making it up. So it's just in my mind. I'm just imagining being in pain. And I think the change is now starting to happen where it's kind of really filtering down that we're, your chiropractor is basically singing from the same song sheet as me, really. And that we're, okay, it's it's multifactorial, it's quite complicated, and it's unlikely to be caused by just one thing. And so, as she's talking to you, and there is it's one of those things again where I had a bit of a crisis of confidence around treating people, because as soon as I started to delve into this much deeper, I was like, okay, so what's the point of me? Like, if there isn't any tissue damage, what's the point in treating people in that traditional way? And so I did have a bit of a soul searching, and I think I use it mainly for a vehicle to deliver information. And to deliver a message of, I'm not fixing you, I'm giving you the tools to be able to fix yourself. And that, this conversation, I will send you away hopefully feeling confident that you can move, that you feel better to move, that you have a strategy. So it's kind of empowering people with their own journey of pain, so that they have a belief in themselves, as opposed to.
But some people don't have a crisis because some people don't actually want all that. Some people want
I know,
you to
just
go
rub
in
them.
and fix them, even if they all know that. They don't want to know. They just want you fix me.
But you make them feel safe, I guess, even if you don't. The fact that you're there doing stuff makes them feel, I'm in safe hands. Yeah. I'm in a professional's hands. Actually, now my body is safe.
Yeah.
And then the pain probably goes away because
100%. And I think as long as when you keep delivering that same message, like I have people who come back, I have people I've seen for 12 years, and I don't mind, like that's absolutely fine. Keep coming, but just know that this is not what's fixing you. If you want to come along for a chat and a rub, you crack on. I'm here for that. And I'm very happy, but I'm quite kind of clear that you need to be doing other stuff outside of it for this to be effective. So I'm sending you off into the world ready to do your stuff. But I think if you keep delivering that same message, it does eventually start to kind of get through. There's nobody, but everyone's like, I've done my exercise. I have done my exercise. I promise I've done my exercise. It's just still really sore. I'm sure you're laughing because you're doing this. You do the same thing. I can see Katya's turns up. So I've done my exercises.
Different knows if I haven't, but I am trying. Like I am trying to strengthen my back. I am trying to strengthen, but sometimes when it's so stressful and I can feel my whole back. Sometimes just going for a release gives me that boost to keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
I can feel it, and sometimes and I'm not great at yoga and the discomfort, and I think sometimes when she releases it all, it gives me that kind of like, right, I'm in a better stage to keep going with it now. Like it just all got a bit too much.
Yeah. And if that's what you use it for, then that's fine. I think it's just as you say, it's maybe the thing that kind of gets you over that little lump in the road, and then you can kind of go, okay, now I feel better. I'm off again now, and that's got a place 100%. Like that's very valuable.
Yeah, come back to me in 10 years. I'm still doing it.
We all need a little help here and there.
Absolutely. I mean, yes. I get treated less and less, and that's what I always kind of think, that the stronger I've become, the less I need treatment. Definitely, 100%. I still get flare-ups, and that's the other great saying, is that we say don't flare up, but if you do, don't freak out. So if you have a flare-up, if you have something that all of a sudden goes, oh my God, I was just brushing my teeth and my back went and I can't move. If I had a penny for every time I've heard that happens a lot. But don't freak out. It's fine. If you're just brushing your teeth and your back goes, the chances of you doing something really bad are pretty much nil. And one of the things I was going to say actually is back pain, particularly if we think about the fact that you have the spinal column or the spinal cord running through the spine. It's a very, very big thing for the brain to protect, and it's going to do everything in its power to make sure that nothing bad happens to that. So that's part of the reason that back pain is kind of so intense and so kind of like, oh God, I can really feel that every move I make. I can feel it when I'm breathing in and out. It's that really kind of deep pain.
Yeah, because it's the body kind of almost freaking out and saying, don't move your spine. Just keep it in a straight line
absolutely.
For now.
Yeah.
And
Do
all
not
the muscles
move.
kind of spasming around it.
We'll make sure everything's in place, ready for that not to move. Don't you move that, don't you move that, don't you move. So then it's a case of, it's then our job to go, okay, let's start to unpick that. Is there if nothing, like if you weren't hit by a car, if you didn't fall off a ladder, if something, if you were brushing your teeth and your back went, let's unpick what else is going on. did you just change
Yeah.
job? Did you just move house? Are you in the middle of a divorce? Have you just had, has your third child? What else is
a
going
work
on?
deadline coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're working in front of your computer and all your muscles are kind of hunched.
Yeah, exactly. Or even just the
tight.
stress of having that work deadline. You don't want to disappoint your boss. You disappointed him last time and he got really, really cross, and you don't want that to happen again. And then my wife's going to be disappointed because she just, it's just builds and builds and builds. So
yeah. Interesting.
Wow.
So just another kind of pain. What about fibromyalgia?
Okay. Yes.
I don't know much about this, but
what is it?
Exactly. I hear the term.
Yeah. So
Can you explain
fibromyalgia.
what it is?
Yeah. So fibromyalgia is an autoimmune disease, and it's kind of again very, very difficult to describe, but it's pain in multiple joints, I would say. So people are in extreme pain in loads of different places, and it's extremely uncomfortable. And I wanted to kind of perhaps touch on it in the way that we can talk about, I suppose another thing might be like arthritis. So we've got arthritis in multiple joints, and we're talking about that systemic inflammation. So where you have inflammation not just in one area, but in your entire system. So again, we talk about stress. It might be something to do with an immune response. So it can be to do with where we've had an immune response and it hasn't happened in the way that we wanted it to. So the immune system is already on high alert. So yeah, you're kind of looking at systems that are in place that are ramped up. And I suppose that's my feeling around fibromyalgia is, if you can, having worked with 3 or 4 people now quite closely with reducing their fibromyalgia pain, is that if we can look at offsetting some of the stress, that we can look at then looking at, can we build mechanical loads so that you can move more and do more, and then that it actually starts to create a multifactorial change that isn't just, okay, I have fibromyalgia, I need to take this drug to alleviate the pain, and then inevitably probably there will just get smaller and smaller and smaller because everything hurts, like just everything hurts. And that must just be awful.
You said a few things. So managing the stress, do you mean through like mindfulness and stress reduction, a less stressful job? Do you mean that kind of stress?
Yeah, for sure. So you can either do, so we talk about inputs and outputs. So is it something that, can you make the cup bigger? So, and that might be through, mindfulness, or through, can you make your ability to cope with the stress better? So journaling, things that are enabling you to kind of deal with stress better, or can you remove some of the stresses out of your cup? So can you, again,
if there's a stressful thing in your life, can you
in some small way, and it doesn't even need to be that big, like just some small way to try and remove it or decrease it.
And then you said mechanical load. Do you mean like
training,
lifting weights so that your body gets stronger?
Exactly. Yes? So I think I do use mechanical load quite a lot, and I assume that people know what it means, and that's not true. So I kind of mean like it. So you kind of want to make the tissues stronger so that they are able to cope with more stressors, I suppose. So, and that can be, for example, if it's a particular joint or muscle, then it might be that they can just cope with walking or running. With fibromyalgia, that mechanical load might be going outside for a walk for 5 minutes. So it might be that the environment and the stress on the body is improved, as opposed to a specific kind of do these 5 exercises every day kind of thing. So, or it might be, lying on the floor with your knees to your chest, or it's something quite small, but it's a load on the body that it's just increasing your resilience, I suppose, to it.
Yeah.
Wow, gosh, makes me feel so lucky not to have chronic pain.
I mean, if you've ever had something that goes, I always think, or when it happens to me, I just think I must remember what this is like, because it is so draining. It's and you see it in people when they turn up, and people who've been in pain for a long period of time. There's just, you can see it in their face. It's just it's so draining to just.
It can sometimes make you feel really sick. It just affects everything. It's like it's just constant. It's hard.
Yeah.
I was going to say it starts to affect relationships and things like that as well, doesn't it? So it starts to affect other aspects of your life. So that's when it's,
because your tolerance is like down.
Yeah.
It's like at zero. You're like, I cannot take anything else. I'm like down here.
Yeah.
This is taking my full load.
Yeah,
attention.
absolutely.
Yeah.
This might be explaining my current state. I won't go into much detail, but I've had very low tolerance last week, and it's probably because I have this sciatic pain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
well, it's sort of like
I'm like, it's there all the time. Yeah. Usually I'm like a yogi, like things that really get me. But this last week I've just been like not very tolerant, but that's okay.
Bless you. We all have
She's
those
been like
times.
normal. She's just normal. She's like at my level. You're just normal. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't see different. What's wrong with that? So she gives me examples.
That's a perfectly normal response.
Yeah.
Usually I'm like, breathe, take a deep breath. But moving on, I'm curious, are there any difference between men and women, do you know, between how we experience pain or?
Okay, so I don't know that there's a different. Again, because it's different. If we use love, well, everyone experiences pain or love differently. I suppose with women, as we age, probably as we talked about the estrogen going down, that's definitely a thing to remember, that you might start to get aches and pains in you're like, God, my shoulders ache, or we get a lot of that as you go into sort of menopause. So that would be my major thing, that we have this this sort of falling off a cliff as a woman, really, don't we, whereas men tend to age in a more linear fashion, and women tend to kind of go ooh. So and I think that's why the stark difference. That's also one thing to think about, actually, as we talk about pain that is really, 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 really life altering. Either moves so fast the thing that causes it moves so fast that you don't experience pain, or it moves so slowly that you don't experience it either. So think of, like, if you have a car crash, very fast, the pain is kind of after, and then very slow, something that's like maybe cancer or something that grows really slowly, and it's only when it becomes really, really invasive that you start to feel the pain of it. So when people think I've got pain, that must equal something really bad has happened. It's like, actually, the really life-altering things tend to kind of fall into that category of so fast or so slow that your central nervous system doesn't pick up on it. So I wonder whether that is why women all of a sudden in menopause we have this kind of, because it's kind of a little bit faster than normal. So we get that kind of, oh God, now my shoulders are aching, and because the estrogen kind of falls off a cliff a little bit. That I wonder whether, I don't know, I haven't got any research to back that up at all, but as I'm just wondering whether that is something to do with why.
It could be a link.
Yeah.
Would strength training help with that kind of those aches and pains?
So creating more
menopause.
So when having more muscle increases estrogen production. So yes, 100%. If you have more lean muscle, then you have a better chance of creating an environment where estrogen is either detected or that you are creating more estrogen within the body. So yes, God, strength training, 100%. Just grow muscle. You will not get bulky. How many times do we say it? Can we put it on a t-shirt? We're like, as women.
Well, you're sporting your new t-shirt.
I know. Live strong.
It's got a lovely her new merchandise on. You need to have that on. Like, you will not get bulky.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so bad at building muscle, particularly over 40. It's just, we're like the worst group of humans to be able to put muscle on. The women, when they're like, oh, I don't want to lift weights, I might get bulky. Like, no, you won't. You won't. Don't even worry about it. It's not even a thing. So I don't really know how to say it again. I just want to get in this podcast just to make sure, in case there was any
definitely. Well, we actually, so many of our experts have said this. It's like it
Yeah.
always comes up as a pet peeve when any expert is talking about fitness or menopause. It's
Yeah.
always like that pet peeve of women can really benefit from building muscle,
Yeah.
and no, you're not going to get bulky.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh,
and I don't know where
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
come from. Like, I don't know where that's come from that people
I
like
I
believe
guess
that.
I guess it's the old kind of stereotypes, isn't it, of
Yeah.
men muscle, women slim. That's
Yeah.
kind of like a stereotype of the past, of the beauty ideals, but not that
Absolutely.
we're endorsing those at all.
No,
But
but that we have any. I mean, again, one of the things I'm probably again jumping forward a bit, but been thinking about is that, you know, this idea that actually, you know, having spent a long time controlling my weight, controlling how I eat, controlling how much I eat, and just thinking in that way is just becoming so old-fashioned almost now. And I'm so glad to see the back of it, that we do not burn calories at the gym. We don't need
we
to
build
burn.
muscle.
Yes.
Yes.
Build muscle, create an environment where muscle can grow. Don't worry about the calories. Most people aren't eating enough. I mean, unless you have, you know, some people are eating too much, obviously, but generally they're not eating enough of the right food. So that's why that's the case. But yeah, it's a case of just train, like, I almost think of it like stuff like an athlete. So if everybody thought of themselves like an athlete, like, how can I get the best out of my body? How can I train in a way that's going to get the best out of my body? And if you can do that, you will create a structure that is able to be resilient and resourceful, and the pain side of things then becomes so much easier to deal with, because you have a resilient body, so that if something does happen, your recovery will be better because you have the tissues in place to to recover and well. And also, I think we get, by strength training, it's uncomfortable. Like, as you said, Katya, you were talking about yoga is uncomfortable, and putting ourselves in uncomfortable positions makes us better at being in uncomfortable positions. And so that in itself grows your pain kind of resilience,
Yes.
possibly. I don't know.
Yes.
So you then
preach.
Yeah.
This is like that's what I say all the time to my yoga people.
Yeah.
But it is
Uncomfortable
true.
is
I love
good.
it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's so good for
Wow.
us. It is it's so easy for us to be in a comfortable situation now, isn't it? It's so easy.
Yeah.
It's like someone
Interesting.
said it's so easy to just sit, and you said your world just gets smaller if you just sit
Yeah.
in it. Like this morning, I felt so uncomfortable. I'd had no sleep, and I had a CrossFit PT.
Oh, well
And
done.
honestly,
on no sleep.
on no sleep, I was so
Wow.
uncomfortable. And like, I was so, even just starting, it wasn't until I got into the exercises and the more weights I got on, I actually got better. Because I was so achy and stuff. It's just a good analogy of what like a personal like experience of what you've just said is that if you'd said to me this morning, like, I think I even cricked my neck as I got out of bed, like I would have been like, I'm just not going to be good today. But I got then, it warmed up and everything moved, and
Well done. Well done.
And I
I
think
was
that's
thinking of all the reasons this morning of what I could cancel.
and that's such a good, because we talked earlier, didn't we, about like, when should you train? Like, if you wake up in the morning and you feel like, oh god, my back's really hurting, and maybe I would say just go along with an expectation that today's perhaps not going to be, it's not going to be a PB day. Like, today is just going to be a day when I'm going to oil the wheels and see how it goes. And if halfway through it does not getting any better, I'll sack it off and go and get an iced latte. Do you know what I mean? And so then, you've given yourself the opportunity, because 9 times out of 10, like you say, when you get moving, you get there, you're like, do you know what, this feels okay. And yeah, be sensible. Like, you don't need to push yourself 100%, but yeah, it's always
Any
worth
motion.
Motion is lotion.
Any motion is a lotion.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
So true.
Yeah,
it
so
is.
Fantastic. Wow. So, I mean, we've raced through this hour. You said so many interesting,
Actually,
fascinating
I know, I just saw the time.
things. Yeah. But before we go to our kind of finishing questions, was there anything else about pain science that you really wanted to say? Any myths or any misconceptions or any bugbears?
No, I think the things if I had to make sure that people came away from this, listening to this, would be that pain is real. You are definitely experiencing it. Some people are like, I don't want there to be any kind of ambiguity around, oh, but Sam was saying it's in my brain, so does that mean it doesn't exist? It's like, no, it does, in the same way that vision exists and love, and those experiences are true and real, and you feel them, and that it's not that pain isn't always bad. Pain is good. Pain is there to protect us, but is a protector, not a detector. So it protects against more pain. It doesn't it protects against damage. It doesn't detect damage that's already occurred. So those are the two kind of things that I would say, remembering that those two will hopefully start you to kind of pick away and become a detective in your own kind of like, okay, what's going on here?
Yes, and then the takeaway is that if you do the detective work and you think, well, there's no actual, no car crash, no falling down the stairs, no something heavy that fell on my foot, or no twisted ankle.
Or baby sitting on my sciatic nerve.
Exactly. But then if there's no obvious reason, you can tentatively move through the pain and see how it feels. And sometimes then that's okay.
Yes, and generally, yes. I mean, it's if you have a history of stuff, and obviously, speak to somebody about what's going on. But most people, certainly in that moment of, don't panic, because that's the worst thing we can do. So just breathe. Try, if you can, to just get a small amount of movement through if you're having that initial kind of moment. So and just try and take a few breaths, take a moment, and see if you can move through it. And as it eases, if it doesn't ease, if it gets better, if it gets worse, like I say, if it gets worse, always not a good sign. So go and get that investigated. But if it's kind of like, actually it's a little bit better, the other thing to remember actually is that we kind of think of like we're either in pain or we're out of pain, and pain is not digital. It doesn't go on and off. It's more like an analog scale. So it's kind of like, okay, it's a little bit better. Oh, it's not any better. Oh no, it is a bit better. Oh no, so it tends to go a bit like that. So you can have maybe like, actually it was really good on Monday, but Tuesday and Wednesday was awful, and then Thursday was good, but Friday was bad. So my pain's still here. So it's like, so just thinking about, okay, how is that feeling, and is there any change to it?
Yeah.
That was the longest answer to a very short question.
But also that positive loop of like, when is it less painful then, and recognizing why, maybe,
and doing more of those things.
Yeah.
And maybe trying to remind yourself that you are safe.
Yeah.
Because you're talking a lot about how the body thinks it's in a stressful situation.
Yeah.
And that mental stress could be contributing potentially.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good.
Fantastic. Thank you. Now we just have, as before, we have some closing questions.
Oh, yes.
I think back in the day when you did your first episode with us, you probably recommended a book, but we'd like to ask you.
I remember what it was, I think, as well.
Which one was it?
It was Atomic Habits.
Yeah. I recommend it to everyone. Did you read it?
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah. I'm like, it's one of my many that I'm halfway through reading.
Amazing.
The first half's the best.
5 books. Fantastic. So, would you like to stay with Atomic Habits, or have you got another book?
So I had a little think actually, and I was thinking. So I hand out Atomic Habits as a staple book all the time because it's so good. There is, if people are looking for something with regards to pain, I thought might be quite useful. And I would say there's a book called Explain Pain, the Protectometer. Now, that is written by Lorimer Moseley, who I've talked to about a little bit today. It's kind of like the most gentle introduction to his vastness of information around that. And it's designed to be, he's very funny. He writes the way he talks, and it is it's very easy to read. It's not particularly big. It's quite a small book, but it's designed as a kind of workbook almost, so that you can start to kind of work through it. You can identify some of the things that might be danger in me, safety in me type things. It's a really interesting read if you are somebody who's perhaps in a persisting pain situation. I mean, it's interesting regardless. And actually, the interesting thing about it is if you took out pain and maybe put in like anxiety or depression or any of those other kind of slightly complex issues, a lot of the things that he talks about apply to in the same way. So
Interesting.
Wow.
if people work in different fields, then it's quite interesting to kind of see how the pain side of things. In fact, they are looking in those fields, in sort of the depression and anxiety. They're looking at what pain science is achieving and what they're doing to kind of guide some of the things that they're doing themselves. So but Explain Pain, The Protectometer by Lorimer Moseley and I think Dave Butler possibly. So yeah, that's a really good one. And my next book to read actually is Raw by Stacey Sims, Dr. Stacey Sims, who does a lot about female nutrition, sports science, performance. So if you,
I think
that's
I've
my
heard of that.
so too. So Stacey Sims is just incredible.
Heard of her,
yeah. So she wrote, and she's just written a new book, Next Level, I think it's called, about menopause. So there's 3.
Great.
Come for 1, stay for 3. But number 1 would be Explain Pain.
Okay.
Perfect. Oh, I'm going to get some of those books.
Yeah.
I know, but I've got so many to read.
I know, me too. I've got 3 on my bedside. I'm like Katja. I'm the same. I like to have a rotation of books.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I've recommended 3 because I'll buy all 3 and then read half of all of them.
Yeah.
I read in about 5-minute chunks. That's what I get.
Yeah, but you're good at like getting through one thing though.
Kind of.
No,
I've got about 3 on the go.
Okay, so it's all of us.
Yeah. But how can you tell us, how can our listeners find you, and also your website and socials, and also have you got anything you'd like to mention about your business, any programs or anything?
That's really kind, thank you. So I am on Instagram, Samantha_Charlwood, I think is the tag. I tend to be most on that. I'm on Facebook as well, but I'm just about in September. I'm not sure when this is heading out actually. But in September I'm kicking off. Does that work, or is that?
Yeah, it's good
works,
timing.
Yeah.
This will come out about
August
actually.
Oh, fab. Okay, so in September we kick off the 4th iteration of the Body Confidence Catalyst, and that is an online group program for men and women, but mostly women, if I'm honest, who want to get stronger. They want nutrition advice. They want to be able to have support in a group environment. So I can't believe that we're doing a 4th iteration. Like most of the people who started in January are still doing it. So it's kind of a growing, kind of like we've got about,
community.
about 30, about 35 people in there now. So it's really nice that people kind of keep signing back up, and we grow and and start to kind of get a bit of momentum. But yes, so that kicks off. If you want information about that, I guess I can give it to you guys, and you can do that. Other than
we'll
that,
put it in the show notes. Yeah,
if people want information around pain, or to look at working through a persisting pain issue, then I'm very happy to. That's done on a much more bespoke basis, because it would be impossible to put together a sort of a program, in a group program. I can't imagine anything probably worse in some ways than trying to work through somebody's individual pain with that. But I'm definitely very keen to work with anyone who has something that they want to work through with that. So I think that's it.
Great. Yeah, we'll put all that information in the show notes so people can know how to find that program that starts in September. It sounds amazing.
And I'll reshare anything you do on Instagram as well.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really kind. Thank you. Yes. Instagram is such a, when you're going through a real stressor, I mean, you guys must say the social media is I have to say it's the first thing to go, because for me, it's in the nicest possible way, probably the least important in many ways, especially when you have, you know what I mean? It's kind of one of those where you're like, okay, my cup is really full. Do I need to post on Instagram every single day? No, I do not. No. So, keeping my teenagers happy and safe is much more important than making sure that Instagram is fed. The algorithm is fed.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So
we hear you.
Yeah,
we hear you. And I think everyone listening to this will be nodding their head like, yes, that's fair enough.
It's so important. It's so important to get the balance right, isn't it?
Yes. So lastly, we asked this before, but you can ask it again. to you very personally, what does health and happiness look like?
Oh, yes. So I did a little thinking about this, and and I think oh gosh, this could become really quite personal, but I think given that going into menopause, so I'm 46, and we are literally like the door is opening, and heading into perimenopause. There's things that I used to be able to do that I can't do anymore. The brain fog, the not being able to pull people's names together, the transition that happens at this time is really quite. You have to start to think about, okay, so what do I want this experience of menopause to feel like for me? And for me, it's really, really important that when I come out the other side sounds a bit like, oh, it's just but once this sort of mania has passed and I'm in my 50s and 60s, what do I want to be like? And so I am now spending a lot more time thinking in a longevity term as opposed to an aesthetic term. So for me, health and happiness now has much less to do with what I look like, but what I'm able to do and what I will be able to do. And I think we really struggle with that as women, because a lot of what we were talking about earlier around health, exercise, diet, it's so focused on what we're going to look like. We're going to be lean. We're going to lose those extra pounds. We're going to, we're going to be strong. Yes, we are, but we need it to be, because when we're 80, we're going to feel strong and able to live an independent life. So that for me right now is a massive focus on eating the right foods, doing the right exercise, investigating how I can make the most of these years that I have before, and just trying to crack on, basically. So,
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that you've already put quite a lot in your pension pot for your longevity, if you want to speak to it like that. Like with your strength training and things like that, I feel like if there's someone that I'm going to look up to try and to see it would be you. And then the fact you already put quite a lot in your pension pot compared to the majority.
I hope so. And what I feel like is actually if I can spend a bit of time now teaching other people how to do exactly the same thing, because exactly that, Katja, looking at women in their 30s who are kind of like, okay, so what should I be doing now? Get off the cardio machines and get in the gym. That's the thing. Just leave the cardio and go and get into the strength training area of the gym tomorrow. Find someone who can tell you how to lift weights and lift heavy shit a lot. That's it,
Yes.
and heavier than you think. That's it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And actually, doing heavy lifting it becomes a cardio workout.
100%.
I'm I need longer than 30 seconds rest right now.
I know.
About 5 minutes will do.
That's what I say. Like when people start, I put in little rests after their sessions. I'll do 45 seconds, between each exercise, for example. And people are like, I don't really need the 45 seconds. I'm like, yeah, will eventually.
Yes.
So
don't
true.
worry.
Stay with it. Let's leave it in for now, because in about 6 weeks you'll be wanting a minute and a half. So, So
you do.
It's definitely it does 100%. And this is why you are looking at that sort of anaerobic exercise, I suppose, but that's the stuff we're just not very good at building. That we have loads of the slow twitch fibers that kind of keep us going. We should look more to polarize our training, so really, really hard and gentle. Not this glut in the middle where everybody sits on a cardio machine for 45 minutes. Don't worry about that. Polarize. Hard, gentle.
Yeah. So basically...
Yoga, heavy lifting.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yoga and then lift really heavy stuff.
Yes.
Well, gentle, I know what this is.
I like this. I like this.
100%. That is exactly it. Yeah. Lift and walking.
Yeah.
Walking and yoga. Lift heavy stuff. And there's a lot of around the kind of real sprint stuff, the CrossFit stuff again, that really, really, really hard where you are hands on your knees blowing, that stuff, but not loads of it, just a good sprinkle of it.
Okay, cool. Wow. So much
So
again,
much.
like this is the second time you're on, but I feel like I want to get you on.
I feel like we've got. I'm like, got more questions.
Yeah.
We'll get you on in 6 months' time.
Yes, amazing. Yeah, like I say, we've got 4 to catch up with, haven't we? Somewhere
somewhere.
Whichever.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Thank you, girls, so
Wonderful.
much. It's always such a pleasure to have a chat with you. So
yeah,
I hope it's made a little bit of
nice.
sense. It's a really complicated subject.
It has. It's fascinating, as we said. It is fascinating, but it is kind of like getting your head around because it's a whole new way of thinking about it.
Yeah, I think we're definitely thinking about it. I think our listeners will also be kind of going, "Oh, how can I think differently about the pain that I experience in life?"
If something comes up as well for them, where they're kind of like, "Okay, that's not me because my pain's different from that." That's a really good starting point to kind of okay, so how is it different, and why do you think it's different from every other pain? And then if they could put the analogy, okay, is it love, like, that whole kind of okay, but you have different types of love, and that's okay. So it's kind of maybe just having a little thought to themselves that if it brings up resistance, just because a lot of people are like, yeah, that doesn't sound like me. So if it brings up resistance, that's a really interesting thing to think about as well.
Wow. Well, on that parting note,
yes,
thank you so much for spending this evening with us. It was fascinating.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, and we look forward to seeing lots more from you, and we'll see you on Instagram and all those places.
Thank you so much. Thanks, girls. Thank you.
All right, then. Have a good evening.
And you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back. Well, what an episode.
Yes. It's, as we said, so much information, and that hour and a bit went so quickly.
Yes, it really flew by. And also, I feel like she's been on a couple of times now. She's really like a friend, isn't she?
Yeah.
We've never met her in person, but I just feel like we know her.
Oh yeah, I'm always liking stuff on her Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, well done, Samantha. No, she's so lovely. Just even the first time we met her, I felt immediately like she's such a lovely person, and I felt like immediately that she'd be a great person to go. We said to her at the end, like, to go and just talk to and like just chat about everything. Like, she's one of those people you go to and she'd help in every aspect of your kind of life journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And she would be great as a personal trainer.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, she is one, obviously. But if we were going to her, that would be great.
She'd be good, yeah.
Yeah. And you can just tell that she's really passionate about all those topics. But what we talked about today, the pain science, it's just, she's really passionate about explaining it correctly.
Yes.
And interested, because there's so many interesting things to say about it.
Yeah, and I think she goes further to educate herself on it as well. Like, she does more and more and more than she needs to. But she obviously is so interested in it and finds it all as fascinating as we do. Like, just hearing all that things and all the knowledge she's got is just it's refreshing to hear somebody in that industry go the extra mile as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was really happy she answered my question, my personal question about my sciatica. A bit self-indulgent of me, but
but people suffer sciatica without being pregnant, so and those kind of pains. So, and nerve pain is a different. It's nerve pain, isn't it? So it encompasses quite a lot that people will deal with on a selfish, but not really.
No, it's always good to get a personal example in there. But we really hope you guys all enjoyed this episode. Has it made you think differently about pain, about any aches and pains that you might have, whether that stops you exercising? Mm-hmm. Maybe sometimes you think, oh no, I better not do this because this aches. Yeah. We'd love to know.
And also maybe empathise with someone else's pain differently.
Yeah.
Because like no one feels pain the same.
Yeah.
Which I at the beginning really blew my mind a bit. But we'll talk about more of that on Thursday maybe.
Yes.
On our Thursday weekly waffle, we'll go into that a bit more.
Yes, we're waffling a bit, aren't we?
Yeah. Okay. We'll save it.
We're saving the rest of this chat for Thursday.
But yeah, thanks for staying to this part, and thanks for listening.
Thank you so much. And as always, get in touch, give us a rating and review. We love to hear from you. All right. So
yeah, we'll see you on Thursday.
See you on Thursday.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening all the way to the end.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us on hello@healthandhappinesspodcast.com.
Or we'd love to connect with you on our Instagram, Facebook or TikTok pages.
You'll find the links to all our socials and more on our website, www.healthandhappinesspodcast.com.
And lastly, before you go, please give our podcast a rating and review. It really helps others find us.
See you next week.
Bye.